Welcome back. Let's now use the for each method and map to compute usernames for each account owner in our application. Now here we see that we have here these four accounts, and for each of them we want to basically compute a username, and the username is simply the initials of each of the users. Start with one of them, just with one string to make it really easy, and then we will generalize that function for the entire accounts array that we have down here. So which contains all of the accounts, but for now let's just grab this string and create a username for this one. So let's do the down here. We will leave this outside just to see how it works, and then afterwards we will create a new function. Write const user, that is equal Stephen Thomas Williams, and we want to compute the username. So for this one here, the username should be STW. So that's just the initials in lowercase. And now let's write that const username, that is equal user dot lowercase. So here we start by transforming this string to lowercase. So for that we have returned this to lowercase. And now we simply want to take the first letter of each of the words, that is this S, T and W. So we need to basically split up the string into the multiple words. So this is a very common use case for the split method. Let's write here dot split and then give here space. Now which will divide the string into words. And let's just take a look and then discuss our next move here. Write console.log username. Now let's see the result. Is modified user. Reload. Now we see that all these are in lowercase, and also we have the three different words. Now here, how do we take each of the first letters? So we could simply loop over the array and then take the first letter in each iteration and then add them into a new array. And then in the end, we would join them and we would end up with the just a string of STW. So let's do that, looping over the array, taking the first letter and then putting it into a new array. So that is exactly what the map method does. Now we can call the map method on this resulting one. So write map, and we can call the split method on the result of the two lowercase method, because this one here returns a string and split is available on all the strings. So now here let's define our callback function. So that is here function, and then say that we have here a name. And so in each iteration, what we want to do is simply to return the first letter. So for that, write here return name of 0. So this should be an array of only these three initials. Now let's see here this result. We have that STW. So now we see that the result of this whole thing is an array. And now for this array, we can call the join method. So let's write here dot join and then give here simply an empty string. This will give us our final result. Let's reload. We have that STW. And so now let's simplify this callback function. So further, let's delete this function keyword and also the braces and also the curly braces, and also delete the return. Here give arrow function. And so now we see that here we have STW. So we transform name to name at the first position. So just the first character, and one more time, don't forget that this is actively returning here. So this one. we just don't see it, but the return is happening, and this is the reason why this works, because the callback function in the map method always needs to return the new value that should be in the new array. So this works great with this username. So let's now take this actually into a function. So let's create that right here. Const create usernames, that is equal. Here we have the function. Here let's paste all these in, cut this one and then paste here. Now let's give the arguments, that is user, and then here give call the function create usernames, and then here log this into console. Delete this one. Now here we need to return the username. Return username. Now let's see the result reload. See here we have the same initial, that is STW. We are done with this, but now actually we want to compute one username for each of the account holders. So further should we use the map or for each method? Before that, in this situation, we don't want to create a new array. All we want to do is to modify the object. So the elements on that already exist in the accounts array. Now all we have to do is that simply loop over this and then do something on that. And now what we want means we use a for each for this. Now let's modify this one, and instead of simply receiving one user, we want to do to receive all the accounts, basically an array of accounts. So for that, let's write here account. In the previous lectures, we have discussed that each function should actually receive the data that it should be worked with instead of using a global variable. So that's exactly here we have the moments. Here we see that the moments have read directly from the global variable of this account one dot moments. But instead we created a function that receives the data and can then work with this and with any other data that we choose and to pass it into. So we do not want to rely on this accounts array that we already have, but instead we want to pass it into the function. So let's get rid of this. Let's write here accounts, this log also. And here we need the short abbreviation accounts. Here we need to use the for each method, but again we don't want to create a new array. So we simply want to modify basically that array that we get in as an input. So this is really important distinction to keep in mind. So here we are again talking about the side effects that I mentioned in the last video. And in this case, the side effects are going to be to change, so to mutate the original accounts array. And so that's what we want to do here. And so for each in this way to go. So let's write here accounts dot for each. Then here let's write the function account. This is for each single account. So for each account, we now want to do here this basically. Let's get all this. Cut this one. Now let's just copy this one and then paste here. Let's remove all this. And now let's create a new property on each of the account objects. So here account dot username, that is equal user dot owner. So here we see that this is this owner. So these are the owner names that are coming from. So that's why we have taken the account dot username and create our username from that. So that's what we do here, and then create a new property on that account element, and then we create here. So now see that here we have an error that user is not defined, but this is the error from user part because here we are doing with the account object. So this is the account dot owner, and so here there is no need to return anything. We are just doing some work here so that we are not creating a new value to return. And so if we want to see if this actually worked, and so now let's log this accounts to console.log accounts. Now let's reload here. We see that here we have an objects and the objects with a new property. And so we have here all these four owners details, these username created JS, and then this owner, username is JD, and then the third owner, the username is STW, then the fourth owner that is SS. So it is very important that the use case of this map method because it allowed us to create a new simple array and so which only contains the initials of the whatever the name that we are giving. And on the other hand, the for each method, it was a great use case to produce some so-called side effects. So in other words, to simply do some work without returning anything. So that's what we did here. We simply looped over the accounts array and also in each iteration we manipulated the current account object. And after that we edited a user name to that and then based on the account owner. And so this is all about the video. See you in the next one. Thank you.